All right, so you wanted a deep dive on success, right?
Right.
And we're going to explore a fascinating chapter together.
Okay.
It's all about how investing in people is like the secret sauce to achievement,
Interesting.
whether you're leading a team or, chasing your own goals.
Okay.
We are going to be cracking open chapter 1
All right.
from this book on leadership and education.
Mm-hmm.
And get this.
Okay.
It claims you already have what it takes.
Oh, wow.
Forget fancy programs or quick fixes.
Interesting.
This is about unlocking the power of people.
I like that.
Sound intriguing?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right, so.
What I find fascinating is this whole idea of focusing on the process
Right.
instead of just getting so fixated on like the end goal.
Yeah.
The chapter really emphasizes that the journey is just as crucial as reaching the destination.
I've always loved that saying.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey, not just the destination.
Right.
But this chapter takes it a step further.
Okay.
It's saying that focusing on the process itself.
It's actually how you get to that destination.
I see.
It's like you're optimizing your learning and growth along the way.
Right.
So you're constantly like evolving.
Precisely. And there's a psychological reason for that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, breaking down your goals into smaller steps
Okay.
actually makes them feel more attainable.
Okay.
And that boosts your motivation.
Oh, that makes sense.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed by this huge mountain you have to climb,
Right.
you're celebrating those small wins along the way.
So you're saying it's almost like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
The more you focus on the process and those small wins, the more motivated you become to keep going.
Yeah.
But how do we put this into practice? What are some tangible things listeners can do to like make this work for them?
Well, the chapter suggests something as simple as keeping a journal
Okay.
or a progress board to track your achievements.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about checking things off a to-do list.
Right.
It's about reflecting.
On what you learn from each step.
So if you're someone who loves structure and clear steps,
Right.
like a well-organized podcast,
Yeah.
this is like applying that same principle to your own journey.
Exactly.
But this chapter goes deeper, right? It talks
Mhm.
about investing in people as being your ultimate asset.
Mm-hmm.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Like, how can spending time on others actually help me succeed?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're investing money.
Okay.
You choose to invest in something you believe will grow in value over time.
Right.
The chapter suggests that we should view relationships the same way.
Oh.
Investing time in people is like putting your resources into something that will yield incredible returns.
That's a really interesting analogy.
Oh, yeah.
We often think of investments as financial,
Right.
but relationships are the foundation of, well, everything.
Yeah,
So you're saying we should treat them with the same care and attention.
exactly.
But I'm curious.
Yeah.
Did the chapter give any, real-world examples
This did.
of how this plays out?
The author shares an incredibly compelling story
Oh, wow.
from their own experience as a school principal.
Oh, cool.
They were initially very task-focused,
Okay.
but they made this conscious decision to shift their priorities
Mm-hmm.
and put relationships first.
Okay.
And the results were incredible.
Really?
They saw huge improvement in school culture
Wow.
and student achievement.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one thing to read about a concept,
Right.
but seeing it play out in real life is so powerful.
Exactly.
It shows this isn't just some theoretical idea.
Yeah.
It actually works.
It does.
So how does this work? Why is investing in people so crucial for success?
There are several reasons.
Okay.
First, investing time builds trust.
Okay.
When people feel valued and understood, they're much more likely to trust you and be open to your ideas.
That makes sense.
Second, it creates a support network. When you have strong relationships, you have people to lean on to brainstorm with, to challenge you, and to help you grow.
So it's like having a built-in team of cheerleaders and advisors all in one.
Exactly.
That's way better than going it alone.
It is.
But I imagine there's more to it, right?
There is.
There has to be a strategic element here, too.
Yes.
It can't just be about being nice to people.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Investing in people unlocks different perspectives.
Okay.
Everyone brings their unique experiences and insights to the table.
Right.
When you're open to those diverse viewpoints, you can make better decisions and achieve better outcomes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The chapter really stresses that it's not about grand gestures,
Okay.
but about consistent and meaningful actions that show you genuinely care.
So it's the little things that add up over time.
Exactly.
Like, what are some examples of those meaningful actions? What can listeners start doing today to put this into practice?
The chapter suggests simple things like scheduling dedicated time for meaningful interactions with your team or colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just mean meetings with agendas.
Right.
This is about connecting on a personal level,
Okay.
actively listening to what they have to say,
Yeah.
and expressing genuine appreciation for their contributions.
I see.
It's about being present and engaged when you're interacting with them.
I think that's something we can all relate to,
Yeah,
even outside of work.
absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up in our busy lives and forget to really be present with the people around us.
Right.
But the chapter also talks about this gap between
Yeah.
knowing what's good for us
Yeah.
and actually doing it,
Uh-huh.
right? Like
Yeah.
we know we should exercise and eat healthy,
Right.
but actually making it happen is another story.
You're referring to the research practice gap.
Yeah.
It's a challenge in pretty much every field.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
We know the best practices, the research-backed strategies, but putting them into action consistently, that's the tricky part.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
How do we bridge that gap
Right.
between knowledge and action?
Well,
This chapter has a surprising answer.
it introduces a framework
Okay.
called the PDSA cycle,
Okay.
which stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act.
Plan, Do, Study, Act.
Got
Nice
it.
to
It's
know.
a research-backed
No.
method
Okay.
for testing and implementing improvements
Okay.
in a systematic way.
So instead of just diving headfirst into a new strategy and hoping for the best,
Right.
you're taking a more measured approach.
Exactly.
You try it out,
Uh-huh.
you analyze the results,
Yeah.
and you make adjustments along the way.
Right.
It's a much more iterative and data-driven way to approach change.
It is.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's
It's
fun.
great. And the chapter encourages you to apply this to your own challenges.
Okay.
Think about a problem you're facing.
Mm-hmm.
How could you use the PDSA cycle
Right.
to experiment with different solutions
Yeah.
and figure out what works best for you?
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder.
It is.
So far, we've talked about the importance of the process,
Right.
investing in people,
Mhm.
and bridging that research practice gap.
Yeah,
But this chapter goes even deeper
it does.
into the human side of things.
Yes,
It talks about how our experiences shape our beliefs
that's right.
and ultimately our actions.
The chapter argues that our actions are driven by our beliefs,
Okay.
which are formed by our experiences.
Right.
It's a powerful insight
Yeah.
because it helps us understand why people behave the way they do.
So you're saying that if we want to truly understand someone's actions, we need to dig deeper and try to understand their underlying beliefs
Right.
and where those beliefs come from.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that everyone sees the world through a different lens,
Yes.
shaped by their own unique experiences.
Exactly.
And to navigate those differences effectively, we need to be aware of something called confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, fill us in.
It's our natural tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs,
Okay.
even if that information isn't necessarily accurate or complete.
Oh, wow.
We selectively filter information to reinforce what we already think we know.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes two people can witness the same event
Right.
and come away with completely different interpretations?
Exactly.
It's like we're all wearing these invisible glasses that color our perceptions.
Yeah.
So how do we overcome that?
Well,
How can we start to see things from other people's perspectives,
yeah.
even if those perspectives are totally different from our own?
The chapter suggests asking open-ended questions,
Okay.
actively listening to their responses without judgment,
Okay.
and looking for common ground to bridge those divides.
Mhm.
It's about being curious and empathetic
Oh,
rather than jumping to conclusions or trying to prove that you're right.
so it sounds like a lot of this comes down to communication, really taking the time to listen and understand where someone else is coming from.
Yeah.
But the chapter goes beyond just talking, right?
It does.
It stresses the power of personal interactions,
Mhm.
even small gestures,
Yes.
in building those strong relationships.
You're right. The author has some really interesting thoughts on this. One of the most powerful things you can do is simply give someone your undivided attention.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds so simple,
Right.
but in today's world, where everyone's constantly multitasking and distracted,
Hmm.
that focused attention is incredibly meaningful.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you been talking to someone and they're half listening,
Oh, all the time.
scrolling through their phone at the same time?
Right.
It makes you feel like you're not really being heard.
Exactly. And the chapter emphasizes
Oh.
that this applies to all interactions,
Okay.
even those quick exchanges in the hallway.
Yeah.
Making eye contact, actively listening, putting away your phone.
You're right.
Those small actions signal to the other person that they're valued and respected.
It's like that saying.
Yeah.
People may not remember exactly what you said,
Right.
but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And feeling seen and heard is such a powerful thing.
It is.
But I was really surprised by the chapter's emphasis on handwritten thank you notes.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a bit old school?
Yeah.
In the age of instant messages and emails,
Right.
who even writes handwritten notes anymore?
That's what makes them so impactful.
Oh, really?
Because they're so rare they stand out.
I see.
It shows that you took the time and effort
Right.
to express your gratitude in a personal way.
I see what you mean. It's
Yeah,
like the difference between getting a mass-produced gift
Right.
versus something that someone put thought and care into choosing just for you.
Exactly.
So it's more personal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And the author suggests extending this practice even further. Imagine writing a heartfelt note to the family members of your colleagues, thanking them for their support.
Wow.
That's taking it to a whole other level. It's recognizing that people's lives extend beyond work
Yeah.
and that their families are part of their success equation too.
Right.
I love how this chapter is full of these unexpected and practical insights.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just theory.
Right.
It's giving us tangible things we can do to put these principles into action.
Yeah. One of my favorite examples from the chapter is the story about the author writing to President Obama
Oh, yeah, that's right.
to recognize teachers with perfect attendance.
Such a testament to the power of persistence
Mm-hmm.
and showing genuine appreciation.
Right.
But it also highlights the importance of consistency, right?
It does.
That seems to be a recurring theme throughout this chapter.
Absolutely. The chapter emphasizes
Interesting.
that consistency builds trust and momentum in relationships,
Okay,
just like it does in any other area of life.
right.
Think about it. If you're constantly changing your approach
Mm-hmm.
or sending mixed messages,
Okay.
it creates uncertainty
Right.
and makes it hard for people to trust you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Consistency creates predictability,
Hmm.
which in turn fosters a sense of safety and security in relationships.
Yeah.
People know what to expect from you. They
Yeah.
know they can count on you to be who you say you are
Uh-huh.
and do what you say you'll do.
Exactly. And the chapter draws a parallel
Uh,
between consistency in leadership and consistency in other areas of life,
Okay.
like fitness
Yeah.
or learning a new skill.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to see results from going to the gym once a month
Right.
or practicing the piano sporadically.
Of course not.
Right? Building strong relationships
Yeah.
requires that same level of consistent effort.
You know, this reminds me of our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We've built a loyal audience
Mhm.
because we consistently deliver high-quality content on a regular schedule.
That's great.
Our listeners know what to expect from us,
Mm.
and that consistency has helped us build trust and engagement.
That's a great observation.
So it really does apply.
It all comes back to consistency.
I like it.
Whether it's a podcast, a workplace, or a personal relationship,
Yeah.
being consistent is key to building trust and creating a positive experience.
And going back to that idea of leadership,
Yes.
the chapter emphasizes how true leadership is about shifting the focus from individual success to empowering others.
It's moving from a me mentality to a we mentality.
I like that.
It's about celebrating the victories of your team,
Okay.
supporting them through setbacks,
Yeah.
and helping them grow as individuals.
Which, of course, ties back to investing in those relationships.
It does.
And the chapter makes it clear that there are real consequences
Right.
if you don't invest in people.
Decreased trust, lower productivity, disengagement.
Yeah.
All of which create a toxic work environment.
We've all experienced the drain of a negative workplace culture.
It's incredibly demotivating and stressful. And it ultimately impacts everyone's ability to do their best work.
And it just brings everyone down.
This chapter gives us a roadmap for creating the opposite,
Okay.
a positive and supportive culture,
Oh,
where people feel valued, respected, and motivated to contribute.
that's what we want.
And it all comes back to those core principles we've been discussing.
Right.
Prioritizing the process, investing in people, and understanding how experiences shape beliefs.
But this chapter doesn't shy away from the fact that leadership isn't always easy.
Right. It acknowledges that sometimes,
Yes.
even when you put in the effort and do your best to invest in people,
Yeah.
things don't always go as planned.
That's true.
It acknowledges that people can disappoint you,
Right.
that sometimes those who you give the most to are the ones who appreciate it the least.
Oh, yeah.
It can be discouraging
But
when
don't-
your efforts aren't reciprocated.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's like the saying, no good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
But even when those situations arise, this chapter encourages us to stay true to our values and keep investing in people.
It's a reminder that we can't control how others will respond.
Right.
But we can control our own actions and intentions.
And that ultimately positive energy has a way of coming back to us, even if it's not always in the way we expect.
The chapter ends by highlighting some really powerful takeaways.
Okay.
It reminds us to acknowledge the sacrifices our teams make each day,
Right.
to show up and do their best, to remember that effective leadership shapes employee experience, engagement, and well-being,
Okay.
and that the simplest gestures are sometimes the most influential.
This chapter has been such a great deep dive
It has.
into the heart of leadership.
Yeah.
And it's clear that investing in people is the key to creating lasting success.
But it also makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how can we apply these principles beyond the workplace?
Yeah. Like, how could this transform our personal lives, too?
Oh, totally.
We've been talking about leading teams.
Right.
But what about leading our families, our communities?
Right.
Even just ourselves.
It's about recognizing that everyone we encounter
Right.
has their own story,
Okay.
their own unique set of experiences and beliefs,
Yeah.
and that instead of trying to force them to see things our way,
Right.
we need to approach those interactions with genuine curiosity.
The chapter really emphasizes that idea of seeking first to understand and then to be understood.
Right.
It's such a simple phrase,
Yeah.
but it's so profound.
It's about actively listening
Okay.
to what the other person has to say, asking questions,
Yeah.
to deepen your understanding of their perspective and trying to see the world through their eyes.
Okay.
It's not about agreeing with them
Right.
or condoning their behavior,
Yeah.
but about acknowledging that their reality
Yeah.
is just as valid as yours.
It's about building bridges instead of walls.
Exactly.
And the chapter makes a point of saying
Yeah.
that it's not enough to just passively wait for these connections to happen.
No,
We need to be proactive
we do.
about building those relationships.
Exactly. We can't just expect people
Yeah.
to show up at our doorstep demanding to be understood.
Right.
We have to make the effort
I
to
know.
reach out, to connect, to show that we care.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well,
What are some tangible things listeners can do
yeah.
to be more proactive in their relationships?
The author suggests scheduling regular time
Okay.
for meaningful interactions.
Okay.
Whether it's a weekly coffee date with a friend, a family dinner where everyone puts their phones away,
Right.
or even just a 10-minute conversation with a colleague
Okay.
where you truly listen to what they have to say.
It's about making those connections a priority.
Yeah.
Instead of just squeezing them into whatever leftover time we happen to have at the end of the day.
Exactly. And it's about going beyond
Yeah.
just the surface level chit chat.
Right.
It's about asking those deeper questions, being vulnerable,
Yeah.
sharing your own experiences, and really trying to understand the other person on a deeper level.
And remembering that all relationships have ups and downs.
Right.
There'll be times when we feel misunderstood,
Yeah.
when our efforts aren't appreciated, when people let us down.
It happened.
But even in those challenging moments,
Right.
this chapter encourages us to take the high road.
It's about remembering that our actions and intentions matter,
Yes.
even when they're not met with the response we hope for.
That's the beauty of focusing on the process,
Yeah.
on the journey itself,
Yeah.
rather than just the destination.
Because ultimately, the relationships we build along the way
Yeah.
are the real measure of success.
This chapter has given us so much to think about,
It has.
both in terms of leadership
Yeah.
and in terms of how we approach all of our relationships.
It's given us practical strategies, inspiring examples, and a fresh perspective on what it truly means to invest in people.
I hope our listeners will take these insights to heart
Me too.
and apply them to their own lives,
Yeah.
whether it's at work at home or in their communities.
Absolutely.
This has been a deep dive into the power of investing in people.
It has.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas,
Yeah.
to keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those meaningful connections
Yes.
that enrich our lives.
That's what it's all about.
Until next time, keep diving.